This is the Admok Retro Model 28, and you may never have heard of this pen. For a long time, I would see it in my feed on AliExpress, and because I never heard anything about this pen, I just kept kind of putting it back into the back of my mind as I may look at that someday. Then I was bored not too long ago, and I said, you know what, I'm going to revisit that pen. And it was another Admok that I'll review here soon that I was getting at the same time anyway, the M800, which has been out for a while and has been reviewed by a lot of different folks here on YouTube and Reddit and everywhere else. But this one still, to this day, there's just not a lot to talk about. So we're going to talk about it. It is a retro, I'm going to say inspired. I don't think it's a copy of anything, but it does have some inspired cues from various pens. I'll have a couple of them here in the review later that I think probably inspired little bits and pieces of the pen, but it's a pen that I think actually does pull off a retro look with, of course, a material that's pretty common right now, that Galaxy Blue, and I collect Galaxy Blue pens. That could have been the tipping point that made me finally order this pen. Yeah, probably was. I think it's an interesting pen, but I wanted to know, of course, can the pen actually write? That's what we do here. We test pens, and then I end up sharing all of that together with you. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at this pen. We're going to see, how does it write? How is it made? How does it fill up with ink? Because part of fountain pennery is that we like different filling mechanisms, and inside, that part too is retro. So I think that'll be interesting for some of you. And then there's a twist. It doesn't have an Admok nib, although one was included in the package. I haven't even bothered to use that one yet because what's in here is a German Bach nib. And I think they usually do a pretty good job. But, did they on this one? We'll find out. And I'm not going to say we'll find out another 10 times. We're going to go ahead and spin that camera right now and get started. Here we go with a Model 28. Up close and personal, and I think it's a great looking pen. Not just because I like the Galaxy Blue, a couple of the other colors do look like they would be very good in person to me as well. But the fit and finish on the pen, I think, is on par with the competition that's in the same price range. You can check the specs out for what today's price on this would be at the time of recording, but it's a good looking pen. So let's start at the top and we'll work our way down, and I'll show you some of the things that make this a retro styled pen, and maybe even on a couple where I think they may have gotten inspiration. So right at the very beginning, you have a plastic jewel, which does indeed remind me of those that you would find on vintage Parker pens in the late 40s and early 50s, coincidentally like the Morris Minor here in the background. Then you come to that clip, and you have at the top a star. I don't know if that is particularly the Admok logo. They usually have on the M series a bird from Chinese folklore, but here they have a star in a circle. Somebody who might know Admok better than I, because there's still a bit of a mystery to me, enlighten us in the comments below. Hey, so while I was editing the video this afternoon, I stopped and took a brain break and was looking around at some things. And one of the things that I came across was some information about the Admok 28 that I didn't have at the time when I was actually recording the video earlier today. So the star that is up on the clip, that star is actually the reference to the reference pen in history that this pen is kind of a reincarnation of. Back in the 50s, there was a very popular pen in China called the Golden Star 28. Admok 28, gold star on the clip, and that's the pen. There are a few things about it. They're a little bit different, but that's the pen that this fountain pen is emulating and kind of reincarnating. And so it actually does have a pen that is its reference in history, and that pen shares a lot of things about the competition at the time, like the Estabrook, the Waterman, the Parkers, all of that kind of stuff. And that's why, fitting for the style at the time, this pen echoes some of the same design themes as those pens. It's not because it's simply echoing those themes. It's because it had some of those very features in the original pen back in the 1950s, the Golden Star 28. I'm glad I found that before I was able to upload this video, but kind of a shame that now I'm going to say some things that are kind of ridiculous now having that in mind, but that's okay. It's not the only thing. Later I'm going to tell you that this has a medium nib that writes more like a fine, and that's because it is a fine. It's my other Admok in the same order that's the medium. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. I'll see y'all later. The ball at the end of the clip, very pilot-like. It'll remind you of a few of their models. It's very stiff on this pen. That clip is quite stiff. It is stamped steel, as you can see, and connected up here at the finial and jewel, but quite stiff. Then you come down to the two trim rings at the base of the cap, and those are done pretty well. You can feel them, but they're not sharp at all. It's not a bad edge like you sometimes find on an inexpensive pen. I think they did that well too. And then it tapers slightly into the body. As you come down that body, there's no marking, no anything. I think it would have been cool if they had engraved the name and model number on the barrel. Just would have given it a little bit more of that retro feel, but that's not there, and that's okay. It looks good. And then you'll notice that the machining here is done well. The way that the cap screws onto the body, it's just nice and clean and as it should be. And then you come down, of course, to the finial and jewel at the other side. Again, very Parker-like finial. I don't have a Parker right here handy, but I do have a Parker clone in the Wingsung 601A, and of course you can see the resemblance there to their Parker-like jewel too. That would be the only thing I would say that's similar to this pen. Oh, so when you take the cap off, you'll notice it's a shorter cap, really tiny for the size of the pen. Don't lose it. And there's a shorter press here on the button, and I'm not going to press it because this pen is already filled, but you simply put the pen in the bottle and boop, 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 fill that pen up, and it'll work. It'll work. So far, it has filled just fine. The only thing, of course, is that you really don't want to take this pen apart to look in there, and there's no ink window. So I don't know how much ink I have left. Hopefully I will get through the review. If I don't get through the review without needing to fill up, well, then you'll see how the filling mechanism works. Now you take that cap off, and it only takes one turn. Some of you are really going to like that. It does, by the way, it does post securely, makes for it a little bit of a long pen, but not prohibitively so. And it feels great in hand. Really nice balance. If you have average or larger hands, it's still going to be a lot of pen, even if it is unposted. Has a nice number 6 steel nib from Bock, which means you also have upgrade choices or grind choices that you can swap in later if you want to. Like I said, very nicely balanced pen. It has threads here that are not at all intrusive, and that grip, even though a little bit short, is comfortable. And I've written with this pen a lot, and I enjoy it. I reach for it a lot. It's really a nice feel and a nice writing pen. And visually, I enjoy writing with it because I like the aesthetic of the pen. Now, one of the things about it, and I mentioned this in the unboxing video, and maybe even I mentioned it in the currently inked video, which I'll put a link to here as well. But the grip is the first thing that made me go, this has a little bit of Esterbrook J going on here. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is an Esterbrook J. It just has simple black plastic finials. I don't know, would you call that jewels? They're not very jewel-like, so I wouldn't really think so. It has a trim ring, not a double trim ring, but it has a trim ring in the same spot. Very different clip. But you can see why I might think that they got some inspiration from the Esterbrook J and just upsized the pen to a more modern, larger pen preference, as the market is certainly into right now. And I kind of think that's what's going on here, but with some cues from other things and some ways just to make it have a vintage feel without being a copy of a vintage pen. Unless I'm wrong and somebody says, oh no, that is the Doofenshmirtz 5000 or something. When you look at the grip, this is what made me think this. It really looks like the Esterbrook J grip, just from medium to large, just swap sizes. The vintage nib in this Esterbrook J is a longer, thinner nib than a Box 6, so that's not exactly the same. But do you see what I'm saying? It really has that look and feel. And while I've got the cap off, let's take a look at that nib. So again, it is a Bock number 6. This is a medium nib, and I think it writes medium finish. It's not an overly wet and wide medium as some can be. Writes well. I think this one has a little bit of a soft pencil feedback. I'll show you that in the writing test here in just a second. But it is a typically good-looking Bock nib with their standard engraving. On the flip side, you have a plastic feed It's doing its job, no issues there. And again, the nib and nib unit does mean that you've got swappability. In our lineup, we have that Admok 28 Retro pen, which is the largest of this bunch. And then you have the Parker 51 inspired Wingsung 601A, very popular pen around the world, but certainly in China where the Admok comes from. And then a vintage Waterman from England, and that Esterbrook J, which has a couple of things that I think the Admok echoes. All of these, I think, are really, really good pens, and certainly these bottom three have a large following among people who comment on this channel. Then all of these pens with their caps off and unposted, and it is neck and neck with the 601. They're about the same length, but it is a larger diameter pen. And of course, because it's not a hooded nib, it has a very different feel from that or from a Parker 51. Very similar, though, in feel, just larger and heavier to those vintage pens. Very similar grip sections, those three. When you post these pens, only the Wingsung 601 is short. All three of the other pens are about the same length. And I find that kind of fascinating because that Waterman's a pretty short pen. The Esterbrook J is a fairly short pen, but not posted. Posted about the same as the Admok 28, just thinner pens. All right, let's do the writing test. And this time I promise to actually hit record because I did not do that just a few minutes ago. And here we go again. That's all I can say about that. I had no idea what I was doing. All right, Admok 28. And it is a medium. It's kind of hard to tell. It really writes more like a fine. Wetness is, normal, average. Ink today is Pelican Royal Blue. That tends to write a little bit dry, and that may be a little bit of what's going on here. Good ink, especially for a wet pen, so this may not be as wet a pen as, say, a Pelican would be. In fact, I'm quite sure it's not. Like I said, soft pencil-like feedback. Very well balanced in hand. I'm a little jittery today. Allergies, I think, messing with me now that it's spring. I have places on my mind today that are rich in history and architecture, and places where my classmates went to study and work. Some of them grew up in these cities, and just have people and places on my mind today. Let's do our speed test and see how the feed keeps up with the nib and whether or not James can, write all of these squiggles without turning the nib and the pen too much in the wrong direction. All right. Real time, normal pressure. It's kind of scribbling. All right. A little bit light there. It may be a little bit even. It's hard to tell, but it may be a dry ink and a little bit of a dry writing pen. Maybe do a pen flush with a little flow encourager in there and see how that works. But I don't have skipping problems or anything like that. I haven't had any issues with the pen at all. No dry outs, no hard starts, nothing like that. It's been very reliable. And as I said earlier, I reach for this pen a lot now that it's in my daily rotation for the month of April, which I don't know how in the world that's almost over, but it is. But it's just been a very good pen and an enjoyable pen. Like I said, I've reached for this to do writing and homework and manuscript writing and things like that. And it's fantastic. Really, really good pen. A little bit longer, so, short pockets and modern shirts aren't going to accommodate it much. But some of you are too young to even care. I know that's true. It's so weird being an old man and not even being old. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, some of you can identify. Can you identify with that? I think so. I think the preacher just got an amen from the third row. Anyway, great pen. I really enjoyed it. I think for the value, it's really good because this is the price of a student pen. You know, a lot of student pens are right in here. Lamy Safaris, I'm thinking of things like that, right in that range of pens. But you get a really beautiful galaxy blue material. You get that retro aesthetic that I like. That's not going to be for everybody, but I really like it. And I can take this one out and around. I don't take my vintage pens just everywhere I go. This one, I would because, you know, they're still making them. It can still be replaced. I'm not putting anything older and collectible at risk at this point. But yeah, really cool. I like the aesthetic. I think they've kind of nailed the look with the pen. Here's my question. If you were going to design a modern pen on retro design, what cues from what pens would you have done? What pen would you design? I guess that's the question I'm asking. What would you have made? Would it be something like this? Would it be entirely different? Share that in the comments below. I think that'll be an intriguing thing to see some answers to. And if you have any other questions about the pen, be sure and ask them because there are not a lot of reviews about this one out there at all. All right. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and consider a membership. I've tried to keep those nice and affordable. And I will be doing more on there now that I'm through with my papers for this semester. Until the next time crunch at the end of the next semester, we're good. And as always, God bless you. And I hope that you have a week of renewed peace. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next review.